My name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today, I want to talk about data privacy and the EU's e-privacy directive. I have delayed for almost 4 years talking about this because it had been in the process of becoming a regulation, but it has not yet become a regulation. But I think that it's closer now to becoming a regulation. So, the e-privacy directive, even though it is something that preceded the GDPR in Europe, is still a very, still in force. It's still a very significant regulation having to do with data and communications. And it's something that I think that a lot more organizations will hear a lot more about, as we're seeing cases in the EU right now going on that implicate the e-privacy directive. So the e-privacy directive was passed or went into law in 2002. It was updated in 2009. It's been in the process of being updated into a regulation. So right now it's a directive and possibly a regulation. People thought that it would become a regulation around the same time that the GDPR became a regulation. It's sort of like a puzzle piece with the GDPR. There's kind of interplay there. So the e-privacy directive covers communications, like things like advertising, phone calls, emails, texts that ways that advertisers use to communicate with individuals, and sort of rules about that. Some people in the U.S. call it the cookie law because in 2009 it was updated to add information about how they think that marketers should handle cookies. So one example of this law is that communications with customers should be sort of opt-in. So it tries to stop marketers who are targeting people in the EU from just randomly sending marketing spam or email or phone calls to individuals. If individuals don't opt into those things, marketers are not supposed to send them information. The cookie law, and this is kind of a bit controversial. So the reason why the opt-in was pretty important as it relates to cookies is that the way the law is written, it was saying that if someone comes to your website, you're supposed to give them a choice to decide what cookies can be put on their device or not, or their computer. And then you have to have them make that choice before the cookie actually gets put on the person's computer. The problem with that is that technology at that time, and still today, not all technology works that way. So a lot of times when people go to websites, things get put on their computers, whether they want it or not. And then sometimes those companies have to sort of backtrack by sort of updating that cookie, maybe wiping out the information that was put on there before. We're getting better where there's more technology to sort of help that process, to kind of tie the sort of the data, the cookie drop with actually this consent thing, this consent dance that happens on websites. Consent is needed for data retention beyond kind of the purpose of the data being collected. There is, as a result of GDPR, what we saw is companies go cookie crazy. So in the US, we don't have cookie laws, but the Europe has cookie laws, and as a result, a lot of companies have created, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry of creating technology that will do these opt-in, opt-out, cookie choice stuff. Obviously, this is more streamlined and more advanced in Europe because there's regulation there, where the U.S. it really isn't. So what we're getting, I get tons more cookie requests, tons more requests about consent in the U.S. because there really isn't a limit to how much marketers can contact you and ask you different things. The really important thing that I think that will happen either in this year or next year, hopefully, is that the e-privacy directive will become a regulation. And so when it becomes a regulation, that means it will be the law of the land in the EU member states all across the board. So it won't be something that has to be transposed into law for every member state. But probably the most significant thing about e-privacy and the thing that companies are more concerned about is that when it comes to regulation, is likely to have high fines for marketers that use or misuse data of individuals in this process. So the e-privacy directive has fines, but it doesn't have fines like GDPR, and that's likely what's going to happen. So hopefully in the next few months, or years, I don't know, the e-privacy directive will become a regulation. It will have some significant fine, I'm pretty sure, for companies, and this will totally change the face of how advertising and marketing is done as it relates to how data of individuals or how their consent is handled, and also how data about individuals is captured and retained on the internet. That's it. Thank you.